Good evening. I would like to call the February 18th, 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can we all please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So I do have one thing under my announcements. Mr. Furno had asked to bring to everybody's attention a listening session and Oak Health update. Gives you a chance to connect with fellow landowners and local professionals for resources that can help you steward the woods. This will be at the Douglas Municipal Center, 29 Depot Street in Douglas, on Wednesday, March 4th, 2020, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. It says light refreshments will be served, hosted by the Forest Stewards Guild, Mass DCR, and the Mass Tree Farm Program. So, and if there's any questions, people can contact Chris Capone at 857-406-0175 for more information. Is there anyone here for anything that's not currently on our agenda? Seeing as no, we can go right to the first item, which is appointment to the Historical Commission, Sarah Guimond, and possible votes. Hey, Sarah, come on up.
What pledge?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm getting apps in my head.
It happens.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
You look familiar.
I don't usually get to see you guys this close.
Hey, usually you're back there.
That's right. Get to be on the other side of the camera today.
Excellent. And you have an interest in being on the Historical Commission.
I do.
So, something that you've got some experience with, or?
Well, only sort of as a hobby, but, you know, I do love history and read up a lot about, you know, the stuff in Douglas and kind of know, you know, a bit about stuff, so I thought it might be interesting, and I heard there was an opening, so.
Well, we're always happy to have people volunteer and get onto any of our boards and commissions and make sure that nothing from Dynamic Douglas ends up as part of our history.
Very important.
So you have any questions or anything, Tim?
No, I think that's great. I'm glad to have you in the game as opposed to filming it.
Exactly.
Thanks.
So with that, I would make a motion that we appoint Sarah to the Historical Commission for a term ending
June 30th, 2023.
as
I would
stated by
second
Mr.
that.
Hughes.
Joint motion.
The motion was jointly made and seconded. Is there any
I was just
further?
helping them out.
Thank you.
Assisted motion.
You're very helpful, Mr. Hughes, as always. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
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 I hope you enjoy the other side of the
Send you a
camera.
letter tomorrow.
Sounds good. Oh, I'm sure I will.
All right. We have Douglas Youth Baseball and Softball road use request for parade.
I did send an email out to you today. They have asked that we put that on the next agenda.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
To make it.
My bad.
I wondered, though, in the interest of recognizing the time that volunteers put into the program, if we couldn't act on this.
Well, there's two different things that are coming before you. One is the road use. You can act on that if you'd like. The other thing they want to come before you is some changes they want to make at Soldiers Field.
Do you guys want to move forward with the road use?
I don't see why we can't wait till next
They're
meeting.
coming back.
Yes.
I have something for Citizens Forum, so I'm available whenever your community, I can either wait or, I just,
Oh,
because I saw that you passed over it, I didn't know if I was supposed to raise my hand or.
yeah.
But I can wait, that's fine if you want to do.
Yeah, can we get through this and I can circle back over to it?
Absolutely, that's fine. Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion on the road use for them? And then we can just have them come in off of the Soldiers Field stuff
Yep.
later?
Sure, we'll make a motion that, well, you wanted to wait, Mr. Hughes?
No, I'm fine with going forward.
All right, well, I will make a motion that we approve the Douglas Youth Baseball and Softball's plans for their parade, and to approve the what? the use of the streets as presented in our packets today.
I would second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you could, under the, you're a Douglas resident, I'm assuming?
Uxbridge. We own land in Uxbridge. We own land in Douglas.
Okay.
Texas.
Can I have your name and address, please?
Oh, sure. You don't mind if I sit down, do you?
No,
This should take no
please.
more than 2 minutes, that's all.
I just need it for the minutes.
No, that's fine. Yes, it's Michael Burrill, B as in boy, A-R-I-L, and it's 143 West Street, Uxbridge.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll just make this brief. I appreciate you listening. So I'm actually here, so in the Blackstone Valley Express newspaper, you've probably maybe seen this?
I haven't seen it as of yet. It's at my
Oh,
house
okay.
sitting on the counter.
Well, okay, so anyhow, so what piqued my interest was there's an article that says Douglas Public Safety Goal, replace radio equipment and improve radio transmissions. So the reason why I'm actually here is, so I just attended a Uxbridge Public Safety Committee meeting this morning at the Uxbridge Police Station. So I'm actually working with the Uxbridge Police Department in the town on helping them go to new two-way radio frequencies, giving them advice as far as the radio system and so forth. And so when I saw that, that kind of made me excited because it seems to be that Douglas is probably having the same issue that Uxbridge. So what I'm working on right now is Uxbridge Police is on a UHF radio frequency. They are planning on staying on that. But they have issues talking to the town of Douglas. So one of the things that I proposed this is now the second meeting that I attended, was to have Uxbridge Police change their radio cross patch that would actually cross patch instead of to low band, would actually switch to high band to VHF frequencies. That would actually make them interoperable with the current Douglas Police radio system. And the other thing that I'm working on is I found some VHF public safety frequencies that I'm working on making Uxbridge DPW switch off of low band, which your DPW was on low band, and go to a VHF repeater system. So I didn't realize that Douglas was having some future discussions about your radio system here between the highway department, fire, police, et cetera, emergency management. So I didn't know if, so what I guess why I'm here was to, one, let you know that I'm working with Uxbridge, helping them solve their radio communications problem, and I'd be willing to, since we own, back of our land is in Douglas, I'd be also be willing to work with Douglas, as well as far as helping you go on the right path for your radio system too, as well. And I also do FCC two-way radio licensing too, and that's what Uxbridge Police was excited about. And on a side note, but unfortunately I can't do it, is I'm donating actually some public radio frequencies that I have to the town of Uxbridge that are already licensed in Uxbridge, but because I'm donating those frequencies to them, that there's no more available that I already have licensed, in this area that I could give to Douglas. But at least if I could help Douglas, put you in the right direction. So I don't know if you have a committee, or whether there's a particular person, or whether it's this board that's actually handling this radio project. That's why I'm just here, just to introduce myself. And
At a later date, I think.
Yeah, I know that we do have, I don't know what we call it, a committee that's kind of working on this now. We've gone pretty far down the road already, haven't we?
Pretty far. I don't know how much you're supposed to go into discussing things that are in a community forum, because they're not
Yeah.
posted. In my report, though, I wrote that column, so I'll respond to it. First of all, we're always grateful for people in neighboring towns who communicate better than your town leadership, I guess, on what you're up to, because if you're steering them towards interoperability, that's a good thing. We've been somewhat disappointed with the UHF performance. So we have both UHF and VHF for the police.
right. And
The signal's
the low-
strong within the coverage area. The coverage area isn't perfect.
Right.
VHF has better coverage, and we're going to try to push that whole system over to VHF for the police and bring our low-band clients, so our highway and water departments, up to VHF.
Oh, okay.
And the fire department has recently obtained frequency for VHF. So we'll try to be able to communicate to everybody in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
Northbridge, Sutton, everybody.
Exactly, yeah.
So our problem is more infrastructure and whether or not we're getting enough signal out. So we have one central location right now, and that is in the center of town, so it's pretty good. But as soon as you get to the fringes, it starts to wear out.
Right.
We need to address that. That's
Right.
what our project is all about. I mean, beyond that, I think I would defer to the board if they want to have further conversation about this in the future. We're still talking to the consultant and to the
Right,
vendors to determine, what is really the best format for us, and how do we keep our schools in the loop,
Right, correct, exactly.
because
yeah.
they're in a high spot. So, but I'm glad we're on more or less the same path, because it'll help us work together better.
Right, exactly. No, I agree 100%, yeah. If you don't mind me commenting, so one of the things I couldn't understand is originally Douglas Police had purchased UHF radios, I believe they were Kenwoods, and then they were on the UHF T-band system. Right now, they're currently operating on the VHF radio system, and they abandoned the T-band system. It's still, the cell tower still cross patches out, but the physical radios that the police use are VHF. Which is okay, and I had heard, similar to what you had said back probably 2 or 3 years ago, that when they tried that UHF, it didn't work. There were so many problems or issues and concerns, and now the VHF system is much more better, because now the cruisers, according to what I've observed, have VHF radios, they don't no longer have the UHF radios.
And they have both.
Oh, some have both, okay, the UHF and the VHF,
Yeah, so
okay.
we're repeating over both frequencies.
Correct, yeah.
We're
yep.
still using T-band, just not that much, not that you'd be able to access, because we're relying upon it for other uses.
Right, okay.
Scene.
Right, and that was part of my thought. So I was trying to understand your system to also then, when I'm working with Uxbridge, to explain the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the similar thing. So the Uxbridge Public Schools is exactly identical. They're on UHF radios as you're on UHF here. So the police have UHF to talk to them, and then they're having the same issue that you have here, which is the highway department's a low band. It's very tough. They don't have low band portables. So Uxbridge Public Works has said, well, we'd like to go to a new band. How about UHF? How about this? And I said, no, you don't want to go UHF, go VHF, because other surrounding towns, their DPWs are VHF. So I'm trying to, work. So I'm doing similar to what you're doing, figuring what the towns use around you and say, this is the band you want to be on, then you have interoperability between one another, so. And then, so the issue, so exactly what you're saying, so your cell tower, right, has the UHF T-band and the VHF police cross-patched also, as well as the old former low-band police. Uxbridge has UHF T-band patched to their low band. They no longer have any low band radios, and they've agreed with me saying, you're right, why do we have that cross-patch? We don't have any low band. And then I said to them, why don't you take out the low band cross-patch from your site, put in VHF, so now if Douglas Police or Sutton Police have something, they could then just change channel and interconnect to Uxbridge Police with just the same radio they have now. And then Uxbridge Fire is already on VHF, and I already did see the FCC licensing for the Douglas Fire Department that is on VHF, but they haven't switched to it yet. They're still using
Correct.
low band and UHF combined. So yeah, so I would still be interested in, at least having more of a conversation or whatever you think.
Yeah, well,
If you just want to listen, that's all. And
we will, I will, and
Yeah.
we'll circle back to you, make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay. So you do want me to, I can just write down my information?
If you would do that, leave it
And then
with
just-
Suzanne.
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be great.
That works for me. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's
Thank
all.
you.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your time.
It's a sneak peek, and
Well, yeah, to allude to what Matt had said, thank you for updating us on what some of the neighboring communities
Oh,
are
well,
doing.
that's it. When I saw that, I said it'd be a perfect opportunity, because I want to make sure what I do there also helps you to benefit one another. So-
well, you just think of 9/11 and the difficulty that people had in communicating.
Yeah,
Boy.
absolutely.
This is
I think
part and
it's-
parcel, exactly
I
it.
think it's kind of interesting that we have a resident of Douglas that communicates better than the elected officials. So,
Well, don't throw yourself under the bus, he's from Uxbridge.
Uxbridge, yeah.
that's what I said, Uxbridge resident.
That's what you
communicates
meant.
better than
That's what you
his
meant, yeah.
elected
That's what you
officials.
meant, that's not what you said.
That's what I
Yeah, I
meant.
can just do that.
We knew what you meant.
We knew what you meant.
Whenever they have-
Good day.
Okay,
I took my shot.
you did.
I failed miserably.
I didn't say it.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Bye, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going into item 3, which are budget discussions. One of my fellow selectmen had asked if we could start with Board of Health and then work our way down the list that way, which,
Well, can I say something? We set it up because we wanted to give Patrice a chance to go home because she's the furthest one away. She lives in
Leave it to
Connecticut.
Tim to mess that up.
No, wait a minute.
Wicked far. Connecticut?
Patrice, come on up.
Patrice, you come up first.
Unanimous vote.
Reveal your
Yes, she
identity.
lives in Connecticut on the other
Told you I was going to hit you at
And I'll
least one
pipe
more
really
time.
quick,
Still needs a
Really
passport.
fast.
Is there a barrier like there is at the edge of the galaxy? You have to get up
I
to
always
speed?
promise Patrice the first slot.
Wow.
I was getting the look.
One person, Board of Selectmen.
I do want to point out
Wait a
that,
minute.
Now we know who
Point out
runs the town.
That the agenda and placement belongs to the chair.
Well,
We shouldn't be
theory.
making promises.
I do, and that's why it's first on the list. Well, it's the pie crust powers, apparently.
Gene, if it's coming from you, it's a promise. It's as good as gold. Who am I to ever go against you?
Municipal, no.
Hi, Patrice.
Hi. Now I felt kind of bad, like I was sitting on somebody else's.
No, you didn't at all.
All right, so,
You were first on the agenda as presented, so
okay.
you're in the right.
A little fun fact, in case nobody knows, we now have 1,985 residents in town over 60. Which is why I think our business is booming, because the state, once you're 60, you're considered a senior, but I just call everybody patrons.
I actually take issue with that.
I know. Hey, you don't take issue when you get a discount, though, do you?
Mr. Hughes has been enjoying that discount for 31 years.
I think you have to be a little older anyways to get the discount.
He's
We
gonna
have
figure that out in a couple of minutes.
Our operating expenses are town-funded, however, I apply every year for a grant through the state, which we have been able to achieve, in that it covers our bulk mailing for our newsletter, our exercise programs, other related office supplies for the newsletter, the MCOA or Mass Council lectures or any trainings that I go to, and our motion picture license and any outreach mileage. I also apply for a cultural council grant every year, and they've been very supportive of our center. We receive a grant pretty much, well, each year we've received a grant, and that funds our entertainment for a lot of the celebrations throughout the year. In June of 2019, we changed our name to the Douglas Adult Social Center. We were the first in the state. I received a call from Emmett Smarjo, who is the program manager for the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. He oversees around 300 of the centers in Massachusetts, and he was thrilled. And a lot of people are following suit now, and a lot of towns are too, just to get rid of the stigma that, I mean, it's a place for adults to be social. It's not one age category. We have 60-year-old people there, we have 95-year-old people there, you know, so the state is really, really happy about the change, and they're really, you know, embracing all of the towns to hop on board and do it. So we're really excited about that. Last year, our attendance from July 1st of 2018 to July 1st of 2019, we had 5,000 people enter the center, and right now, we're already at 3,000, it's only February. So this has been a really, really big year. We've had a lot of excitement over the change, and I think it's embraced quite a few of the younger people that are retiring, the 60, 65-year-old people that are retiring. So I think it's been positive all around, and our numbers are certainly showing it.
It is a lively bunch that you have.
It's a lively bunch for sure. The outreach program has continued to grow. With seniors remaining in their homes, there's a shortage of housing, so they really don't have the opportunity to go somewhere else but their home. Or, you know, they could go into assisted living, it's very pricey. In nursing homes, people would rather stay home if they're capable of doing so. So I've been providing a ton of service in that area, probably because a lot of the services are being cut. You know, Medicare, Medicaid cut back on home health aides, and CNAs going out, and services are being cut everywhere, you know, unfortunately, and most of them seem to be kind of seniors first cut, sadly. So we're keeping people home, and we're keeping people positive, and we have a lot of services we can set them up with, so that's what I've been continuing to do. And I think that's pretty much it, other than the facts. with all of our name change and all of our programs and all of our success, we're very busy down there. I have two full-time jobs. I do the director and the outreach, and I've done that for 7 years with one 19-hour-week position, who is Sandy, my clerk. We have to hand count everybody that comes in and out of the center. We could buy a machine that costs about $12,000, but it's thousands of dollars a year to maintain. So it's more beneficial for us to just count. That has to be done for the state, because the state has to know who came, how many times they came. So it's attendance, repeat attendance. When I say 5,000, I mean 5,000 all year. Could have been one person came 50 times, one person came 10 times. So that takes a lot of work every day to count the attendance and then tally it up at the end of the month and then break it into each and every category that the state needs for their annual reports. So she's been hand counting that. And we are busy every day with multiple rooms being changed around for whatever activity we're doing. Some days are very, very busy. Other days, we don't have as many events in each room, but you're setting up, taking down for every exercise class we have. We've got to move all the tables, move all the chairs, set up each room over and over again all day long. And, we like to greet everybody by name. And we're serving lunches and, big parties. Like last week, that took 2 days to get through our Valentine's Day party. We had 70 people there. And so it took a couple of days to set that up. So having one 19-hour position just isn't feasible for the busyness that we have at the center. So I do have, Mike had put it in when I took both positions 7 years ago. Mike had put in for the per diem coverage. So it was in our budget to be able to have vacation coverage, and the fact that, because I'm the outreach coordinator, I can't be left alone in the senior center without somebody else, because I can get called by the police, the fire, and Board of Health, or anybody to go out during the day to respond to an emergency. And it happens more often than not. So if I'm alone there, what am I going to do, throw everybody out? I can't leave them there alone.
That wouldn't go well.
No.
So that person was put in place, so when Sandy was on vacation or Sandy had a sick day, that we would have the person there to do the coverage.
So you need staff.
I need a staff person. I would love a staff person. So I had put a position into the grant last year. Unfortunately, you never know if you're going to get the grant every year. We just, we write it, and they've been pretty good, the state, but they can cut at any time, and they can cut the amount we're getting at any time. And they're still using the 2010 census, so they up the dollar amount by $1. But I don't know if they're going to now use the new census and drop us down to $4 a senior. I think we'll be getting the same amount. Our newsletter now is being done through LPI, which is great because they have advertisers that are paying for the newsletter to be done, but the mailing is very expensive. And Elder Affairs wants that newsletter to go out to everybody over 60 every 2 months. So I did cut back a couple of years ago, and we just did it 4 times a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. But unfortunately, a lot of the seniors that were beginning to become seniors were missing out on something. You might not see that there's a podiatrist, but if you see this newsletter that's really bright and it doesn't look like a regular town mailing, it's a magazine.
Yeah.
Then, it's really catching people's eye, and then they know all the services that are really, there. So it's important to mail it out, but unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to mail it. So I will not have the extra money next year for a staff person. And if I do have $1,000 next year, it would be for special programs, because when we have big parties at the center, as you know, I could have 70 or 75 people in there. And it's kind of a safety issue. We have people coming in walkers, wheelchairs, there's people with oxygen, so you really kind of want to make sure everybody's out in the main room, kind of keeping an eye on everything that's going on. And we're dancing on carpets, that's another issue.
So for staff, you'd probably, I would assume, be looking for somebody like a 19-hour-a-week staffer, or?
Well, I have the 19-hour-a-week person now, that would be Sandy.
Yeah.
I was looking for 15 hours a week so that they can take over some of the responsibilities, the website, the newsletter, helping with serving meals, doing the bulletin board and the events, and also being able to open and close the center in my absence. And I would like to maybe cross-train a little bit. This particular person, Jennifer, has a really good background in healthcare. So to cross-train her in outreach so that when I'm on vacation, the fire chief is covering. What good is the fire chief covering for me if that's, if the fire department needs me to go and do something? You see what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
kind of, so I kind of thought if I trained her a little bit in that, she'd be able to help the police and the fire in the event that I was out for a week or two or unreachable. Most of the time I'm around, and I do let everybody know if I'm, leaving the country. But if I'm on vacation here, it's no problem.
All right. So, and I'm just trying to keep it clear in my head. So you'd be looking to add a 15 an hour assistant position, and you'd still want to hold on to your per diem as needed. So it would be a net add of 1 employee of 15 hours.
If you look at the sheet, it gives a breakdown on the top, it gives you the salaries. The second sheet in.
Yeah.
Third and fourth line down.
I don't see any issues with that.
While the chairman looks at the numbers, I will say, we went down memory lane a little bit in the office today, and the work that you've done with that adult social center over the past few years has really been remarkable.
Thank you very much.
You
I
take
love
this
that.
job as a vocation, and I think it's recognized by certainly me and the board.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a fun group when I went down to the pancake breakfast with the fire chief. That was fun. And I love the artwork that you've got up in there. It's like really brightening the place up
Oh,
quite a
the
bit.
murals are beautiful. Yeah.
I personally see no objections to adding a staff.
I don't, you do great work with what little we give you, so any way we can help, I'd like to help.
Well, thank you very much.
Is that something that we would need to vote on this evening?
Can I thought last time we decided that we were going to review all requests and look at the big picture before we made individual decisions.
Thank you for reminding me.
So not that I object, I just like to see the big picture before we start
Thank you for your enthusiasm.
adding positions and making, commitments that we potentially couldn't
He
keep.
wouldn't object. It directly impacts him?
Oh, come on now.
Just saying.
What time you open in the morning?
You should know by now.
He forgets.
Worst.
Sorry, Mike, that was just, it was lobbed at me.
Oh, Mike.
No, I think, I appreciate, to Tim's point, all the work that you do down there. You do fantastic work, and I know that the seniors absolutely adore you, so
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love what I do. I do. And
it shows.
I'm a worker, but it's so overwhelming down there. There's just too much at this point. And plus, other special projects come up, and I want to write, we had the ADA grant I wrote last year, and they will be getting it again this year. So, when those special projects come up, other stuff kind of piles up a little bit.
We should put something together where the selectmen serve the seniors breakfast in the morning.
Oh.
Do that, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
And being a senior, I'd enjoy that.
Oh, we're not giving you breakfast?
You don't get the discount, right?
I have to bring my blender to puree all your stuff.
Oh.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Patrice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
I wonder if the board members are aware that Patrice was nominated by our area representative for Heroine of the Year?
I was not aware of that.
Kind of trying to slide
What organization
under
is
the
that?
radar.
On the way out after the meeting, my wife wanted to know why she was being recognized for drug use.
You got to get through the day.
Yes, Representative McKenna has nominated me for his Heroine of the Year. And I will be going to the state on June 24th because he thinks, that the center has come a long way. And he's been around for quite a while, so he has seen a lot of the changes and the work. Yeah.
That's
So I
great.
thought it was very exciting, very shocking, but very exciting. And he decided to share it at the Valentine's Day party so that the staff and all the patrons could share in the moment with me.
I'm not surprised that they would nominate you for that, Patrice.
Well, thank you. I'm very humbled by it.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
It's amazing what happens when somebody genuinely loves their job. It just kind of flows out all over the place, so, and you do a good job down there, very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Go home.
Yes, drive safely, too. It's not nice out
395 in
there.
the rain is a little tough with the wildlife. Thank you.
Hey, I'm the one that said, put you on first.
I said,
Oh,
have a
yeah.
good
Everybody wants credit.
So you said make it a hard.
Careful, Suzanne.
I just,
have a good day.
I will do this, I will remind the board that the staff has just read them off.
Thank you, Sam.
It has.
Suzanne, there's something.
We've lost control.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, Suzanne.
Hey, Suzanne, there was somebody that showed up on here twice on the agenda.
Yes, there
We'll
was.
just leave that alone, though. Want to take all the credit over there.
Oh, go ahead, say it. You enjoy making fun of me, so go right ahead.
I only do it because I like you, Suzanne. All right, now we can have the, if the Board of Health is here, if you guys would mind.
Do we have any material on the Board of Health?
It's going to be one of these two.
Okay, are there any questions?
I like the way you think.
It's not that easy.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, don't make it too difficult on me, because I only passed accounting 101, and I failed accounting 102. Okay, so,
Fair
to be
enough.
clear.
He tried this in my office earlier. I don't buy it.
No dice.
I think he does pretty well.
Yeah.
You will never pull one over on Gene.
No, we've been trying for a long time.
Just make sure if you're in there, you don't say anything about found money.
By the way, my name is Bob Brazo. I chair the Board of Health. From there, do we have any questions? I can read you an annual report if you'd like.
No, I did have one, and it showed up, and of all the weird places, naturally, it showed up on social media. There was some questioning regarding going from the transfer station stickers being twice a year to once a year.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what was the reasoning and motivation behind going to a once-a-year permit? Which I agree with the once-a-year personally.
Sure. Yeah, of course, the reasoning was that we figured we would cut down considerably on paperwork, first of all. It seems like, we're constantly selling stickers, and it's a major interruption, too, for Kristen, because she's in the middle of doing something and somebody else comes in. And, this is twice a year it's happening. We figured we go to a full year. This way it would reduce that, congestion kind of thing. And that's really the reason why we went to that. And, we really, I don't think we have any problems with that right
No,
now.
I've had a lot of complaints over the
Oh, you
years
have?
of people,
On
selling
the
twice a year.
Yeah,
There-
yeah.
It's September and March, just weird times of the year. People don't think about it. They forget to do it. They don't see the signs. Then they get turned away, and it's hard. It's hard for people to get here before 4 o'clock to get a sticker.
How do you feel about it, you say?
I used to always question why we did it twice a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when it went to
I haven't
once.
had complaints about it being once a year.
No, I was one of the people that complained
Yeah.
about doing it twice a year, because I just thought, it made more sense to do it once a year.
Right.
Sure.
You're not buying stickers twice a year,
Right.
Right,
Half the labor.
Yeah, so it's more cost effective, and
sure.
Reduces
just, I think-
administrative
yeah,
costs,
and
too.
makes life easier for all those
Everybody.
involved, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's handling money involved, and, that can be kind of a situation, too. So now it's like once a year, and that's it.
Yeah. My only question was what took so long,
Exactly, yeah.
I think the only thing I'd like to see is at some point is you can do it all online. Like, that would be great.
We're trying to do that.
Yeah.
We're talking about that. It's just hard because it's age requirement, like if you're over 65, you get a discount. We're just trying to figure out how we would do all that. We still have to write this number on the sticker. We still have to get the sticker to the person.
So there's a lot of in-person.
There's a lot of-
You have to see the registration,
You
yeah.
have to see the registration, you have to see the
Yeah.
license if they're over 65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of putting as much on the internet as possible, but some things just don't lend themselves.
You can always like scan and upload and stuff like that. It's what I'm in IT, I can't help, I make it sound simple, but it's not always that easy. But,
Yeah, we do talk about that.
so other than the once a year, what else is?
Okay, well, we are looking at, of course, the haulers, we're coming up to a contract time for, the haulers to submit, their bids. And there is a kind of a new, how do I want to say, a new way of looking at it, okay? We've had difficulties in the past with haulers picking up the, the canisters that we have and everything, and each time they do that, it costs us a lot of money. Like, what is it, like 200 and something?
It's like 180.
180. So each time they transport the compactors and whatever, okay, it costs us money. We're trying to reduce that transportation time by installing the new compactors, where we can take large, say, cardboard type material, and it can be compressed into a smaller amount and then transferred to wherever. And so we're looking at that, and by doing so, we probably have to create a, I don't want to say, well, we'd have to install new electrical wiring and everything else for the new compactor. So we'd have to make a cut in the pavement, have to excavate, hire an electrician. That's what we're looking at right now, so.
We may have some changes coming up with the way the transfer station operates in regards to recycling, just because of the recycling.
Right.
Right now, recycling is really low. Paper is a big one. We had a conference call today. Plastic, there's no foreseeable end to this problem in sight right now. Paper, it looks like may start to get better in the next year or so, but even that right now is a big one. Glass, there's no recycling for glass right now. And we don't want to stop recycling because, recycling as a whole is better, but pretty much the message we got from the conference call was glass, you don't like saying it, but it's cheaper just to throw it away right now.
Right. We were actually receiving money, we were taking in money for cardboard and that type of thing. All of a sudden, that market just disappeared.
China's not taking plastic.
And now they're charging us to haul it, so it's completely reversed.
And cardboard seems to be the one item that there's lots of recycling with.
Right.
Yeah, and that's pretty low too. All recycling right now is low, so the message is to limit single-use plastics. Try to really limit that. That's a big one, because there's nothing to do with them right now. So single-use plastics are tough. If we can limit single-use plastics a little bit and keep recycling and plug away and hope that sort of changes around and some businesses open up in the U.S. that we can utilize those materials a little more. We can talk through that.
The glass go up, it's not being recycled.
But that's
Sit somewhere.
It just goes in
Coverals, they grind it.
It looks all pretty.
So,
Straightforward to me.
we brought you said March was a tough year. Does it make sense to maybe look at pushing it to June?
I don't feel that March is a tough year for that.
Not year, a month for
Month.
transfer stickers?
Oh, no.
If you're gonna, okay, you're good with?
But no, I was
March?
just saying it was awkward times to be selling them. It wasn't
Yep.
January and December.
I think if you do it once a year, that sort of,
Yeah.
Solves it all.
Everybody
Yeah.
knows now, it's been pretty smooth.
Yeah, we eliminated that grace period. We just, drew a line and said, get them by this day now, so that eliminated a lot of confusion too. Plus, in the office for 2 months rather than, 1 month rather than 2 months of selling stickers is better.
So what happens if someone moves into the town in February?
Prorated.
Prorated, that's perfect.
If you're new,
If you're new.
yeah.
Great. How's your board? You guys in good shape?
Yeah, we're fine. We were talking possibly adding another board member. We're down to 4 board members now. But, as long as we can make a quorum, we're fine. So it's not urgent.
We'll keep our eyes open, or if you find any nominees, give them a nudge.
Like a British.
Yeah, we will. It pays well,
Yeah.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, public service is known to be very lucrative. Excellent.
Thanks for coming in on
Thank
a
you very
gloomy
much.
night.
Thanks for what you do, guys.
Thank you.
And thanks for going to the once-a-year thing.
Well, we could hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, we could hear you.
Mr. Chair, because you know I like to do this, you understand the Board of Health handles Board of Health, Animal Inspector, monitor wells, nursing, and landfill maintenance.
Yes.
You have no other questions besides transfer station?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No.
But yes, I do understand that. Thank you for the reminder.
Story behind the dolls.
This one, I didn't want to come back.
Thank you.
Good night.
I'm going to wait till they're halfway out and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Last, library. Unless you have your ukulele, go home.
I'm sorry?
I said, unless you got your ukulele with you, you can go home.
Okay, well, that was easy.
Well, I'm disappointed at the lack of the duster.
Yeah.
Pouring rain out, where's the duster?
I wore my hunting shirt instead.
All right.
That's like your trademark, Justin.
Well, that's
The duster. I mean,
Yeah, the weather was
yeah.
nice this morning, so I didn't feel like it was necessary. I regretted that coming in.
We'll let it slide this time.
So, hello. Did everybody get and read the packet I sent out?
We did.
So, yeah, it just starts out with, a basic explanation of the value of the library. FY19 was busy. Our door count, almost 40,000. We had 80 adult programs, 12 teen programs. We really struggled with teen programs, and 180 children's programs. So total attendance, 578, 75, and 2,050 respectively. If you look at the value of the services provided in terms of, like what people came and did and what they borrowed, the library increased its, return on investment by the community about 267%. $608,000 worth of services for our budget line item of 227,572. We'd like to continue providing good services, but the gist of this whole presentation, the salient point, I think, is, we're not really keeping up with circulation data. And the reason for that is kind of like threefold. The first is that, when I took over in 2015, I spent, until the override passed, every year kind of pulling every lever I could to make us get to our minimum state requirement for funding without having to ask for more money. And so as a result, our circulation spending kind of tanked as we were using that money to shore up other line items. And we need to kind of catch up with that if the resources are there. So we're getting circulation back up. The other thing is the shift to digital. Digital books are more expensive than regular books, significantly so. The advantage to us is that, they don't require processing, they don't require storage. Once we buy it, it's there. There's lots of different kinds of licenses. But, and the other thing is we save a lot in terms of like the turnaround, because, when someone checks out a book, they come to the library, it goes home with them, they bring it back, drop it in the bin, we have to check it in, goes back on the shelf, finds the next patron. Whereas with the digital holds, it's just instantaneous. I mean, you get it for the loan period. When the loan period is over, it returns automatically, you can't steal it, and then it goes to the next patron. So they generate a lot of circulation, and that seems to be where demand is headed. The other big thing is that we started an initiative with the middle school. And it was the middle school principal's idea, is a drop everything and read program where they set up every Well, we set up every middle school student with a library card that they could use to access our digital materials. And then every year since we've done that, we've made sure that every student coming in has those cards. So like we have 100% saturation in the middle school now. And all of their devices, first it was iPads, now it's Chromebooks, have our Libby app built in. So all the students have access to our ebooks, which is great, but it's led to a pretty big, a very good problem to have that, these kids are reading. And the middle school didn't have a plan to pay for it, so it's been depleting our budget. Prior to the introduction of this program, we had like next to no circulation of juvenile and young adult materials on Overdrive because it's mostly a platform that's used by grown-ups. Now, almost 25% of our circulation is coming from juveniles, young adult accounts. And, there's two ways that we can track, the demand on that platform. One is the same way we would track it for books. How many people are waiting for this item and how long are they going to have to wait before one becomes available? And the average wait time in CWMRs hovers around 40 days. I mean, imagine ordering something on Amazon and then it ships in 40 days. It's not...
That only happens before Christmas.
It's not, it's not an acceptable level of service, and especially for kids, because they're checking out of books, that are for, projects, for reading, whatever. An adult who wants to listen to, the most recent, mystery can wait that long. A kid who needs this for a project or whatnot can't. So, I've been trying to keep the wait times lower for the middle school accounts, and I spent $4,548 in content licenses in the space of a year. And we also have $500 monthly cost per circ. So that means those are licenses I haven't bought, but I've enabled. So if a Douglas patron borrows it, they're only available to patrons with our home library. It comes out of my budget. And, if someone checks out the item, it just bills the library, like $1.99, $2, however much it's worth. We get that bill, and then I've capped that at $500 a month. And about 28% of that's being used by the middle school budget, or by the middle school students. So, I mean, whenever you add all that up together, I mean, 10% of our circulation budget was going towards servicing middle school students. And so if we're going to keep filling that need and mediating that need for the schools who aren't really funding their own library, we need the funding. And I've tried to talk to the middle school principal and the superintendent and the school committee, and no one seems to have a real good idea of how to do this. And
What's
no
in
one
that
seems to
library?
have-
I don't mean to interrupt you, Justin, but what's in the library now?
What's in the middle school library?
Yeah, the brand new library.
I don't know. I don't think it's staffed. The high school library has a full-time staff, but their entire materials budget. The high school library is the most well-funded. Their materials budget last year was $1,500. It's really, really bad. And the middle school, I don't think is staffed. I don't think they have a materials budget. I mean, it's like a place where kids go to hang out now. But I mean, the libraries of the schools, except for the primary and the high school, they're kind of trying to bring back because it was unstaffed for a while. Now they have Katie Malo, who was she was the librarian at BBT. But every school does this. They'll hire their librarian for their accreditation rounds, whenever they're getting evaluated, and then as soon as that evaluation period is over, they let them go. And even Katie, even though she's the librarian at the middle school or the high school, she spends a lot more time substitute teaching and doing other classes and things than she does actually running the library. It boggles my mind. It blows my mind, the fact that, reading is and always has been recognized as the most positive reinforcer of education. It's the single biggest indicator of positive lifetime outcomes, but that's the one thing that schools aren't funding. And I think a lot of it is just careless oversight, because whenever we did the drop everything and read program, it's just like, oh, the library has these books, the kids can use that. And it's like, well, we still got to pay for them. Somebody has to pay.
Well, sorry, it's kind of a no-brainer. If there's a deduction that's coming out of a deficit that's in the school, and it's coming out of your budget to actually do what should be falling into the school's budget, then I think that whatever that dollar value is should come from the school budget and augment the library budget. One way or the other, I don't see where the municipality needs to pay for this. If it's a school resource that's being used, then it will come out of the school budget to backfill yours.
That would be awesome, and I tried to communicate with the school committee about that.
How much does that run the deficit about?
How much is funding this program costing us?
It's under 5 right now, right?
Around $5,000. That's $5,000 would give us the ability to kind of scratch the itch. Because I like a snapshot, whenever I did this, for juvenile patrons, we had $867.70 of material on hold that students had been waiting longer for 2 weeks for. And we also had $1,008.15 of materials that they had requested. And those are books or items that aren't available on CWMARS because the consortium hasn't bought them. I have the power to buy them and make them available to Douglas patrons. But, that's like where someone has specifically requested, I want the library to buy this. Because there's a button they can use to do that if they find a license they don't have access to.
What are these books? I know Drop Everything and Read is really designed to pique the reader's interest and let them read what they want, but can they download Alex Rodriguez, My Story, or some other publication, anything?
It's all very, it's student-driven. So, they don't have, a reading list or anything. They don't have a direction. It's let's let the kids read what they want. And I can always tell whenever it's coming from a middle school because all of a sudden I'll see 12 holds on something. It's because the kids will start talking about something and be like, well, I'm reading this and it's good. And so then they all want to read it at the same time, which is a lot of fun. That's when I try to find simultaneous use titles or get licenses that cost less but expire in a certain amount of time. But yeah, I can't comment as to what precisely it is they're reading because it's just all over the board.
Yeah.
So if I could kind of come back here, right up the end here. So you're pointing all this out to justify asking for $11,725. 5,000 of which you said is augmenting the school, or basically coming to backfill the use of the school of your library materials. What's the other $67.25?
The other is the adult need, just the need from our patrons. Because, I mentioned that, for the school students, they have 18 titles right now. They've been waiting on for more than 14 days. Whenever I consider the rest of our patron population, I have 134 titles worth $7,270.93. 55 titles that people have requested that I purchase for, worth $2,980.14. And that's just a snapshot in time. I could buy all that, and in 4 or 5 months, the backlog will be back up there. Because this is with me spending, a pretty significant portion of our circulating budget on digital material. It's just there's more demand than we can meet. And so my thought was, if we can get around, $5,000 extra to fill our own needs, that would be great. And then if we could get $5,000 to earmark for buying, the young adult juvenile licenses that are being requested by the middle school, that would be great. But what I can't keep doing is spending our money on what I did this past year, spending 10% of our budget on a school library. And I don't want to be the evil guy who pulls the plug on, the Drop Everything and Read program. But if I can't pay for it, I can't pay for it. I can't abandon all the rest of my patrons, to shore up a very specific subset.
Vaguely familiar to when we first started talking about doing the override. Is nobody really wants to have to do this, but if there's only so much money, you kind of end up having to.
The interlibrary program doesn't cover these between interlibrary program and different communities participating. That doesn't.
Well, we share our collections consortially.
Right.
So CWMARS buys some titles to fill the catalog, and then libraries have the option to opt in to buy additional titles for their patrons, and then I can flip a switch. So once it's not in demand anymore, I have it set to where if something hasn't been checked out by a Douglas patron for a month and has been, if it hasn't been checked out in a month, there's no holds on it. And it's a license that doesn't have a limited run, like if it's worth so many circs, then I keep it. I mean, I'm not ever going to share that with a consortium because we paid for 25 circulations of this item and I want all 25 of those circulations. But if it's like a one copy, one use, then I'll share it with the consortium where other towns can benefit.
Yeah.
But for that particular license, like Douglas patrons will always have like first come, first serve. So like if they come in and there's like 400 holds on 200 copies, it doesn't matter. They'll be the next one to get one if our license comes available.
Makes sense.
And I want more communities in the Commonwealth to kind of come on board with this. But to be frank, a lot of the directors, I think, are scared of the technology. So adoption across the network has been kind of slow, which is why you see this, 40-day wait time for digital materials. I mean, if people were waiting that long for books, then, there would be, blood in the streets. And we wouldn't be, it's just a complete failure to meet the demand. And I can't fix that for the consortium, but I've done my best to fix it for Douglas. We've really pushed, the app. I've done my best to keep abreast of digital purchasing. I've shifted a lot of our physical purchasing to digital purchasing, which has kind of helped, it's had a lot of positive benefits. Because now we're not having to weed as often because we're not buying as much print. We're not having to come up with new creative ways to store stuff. We're not having to buy as much plastic and barcodes and spine labels and all sorts of things. And, part of our CW Mars assessment is how many titles are in our collection. When I started, we had a collection of like 60,000 titles, and now I've got it down to about 28,236 physical items. Like that's what we have right now. And circulation of books has actually been going up for the last 2 years. I mean, it's not a matter of how much you have, it's a matter of the quality of your material. And so by trying to focus on buying quality print and quality digital instead of just trying to buy as much print, it's saving us space, and it's meeting a community demand a lot better. But we just need more funds if we're going to be able to sustain it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the only really big thing in my budget. The rest is just kind of juggling things around because we got the hyperheat inverters. So, I mean, we're using next to no oil now, but that's made our electricity go up.
Falcon. Those from the Millennium Falcon?
The hyperheat inverters.
Flux capacitor.
Exactly.
Flux capacitor. No, that was from the DeLorean and back to
The DeLorean, yeah.
But yeah, those things are awesome. A reactivated Wowberry subscription service, which is that thing that posts on Facebook automatically every week, sends out a newsletter, so it kind of like tells you what's new with the library, because a lot of people want just to know what's new. They don't care about trying to surf the catalog for everything else. Then I also put back in reinstatement of maintenance and repair line item, because that's another thing that we had been doing prior to the override, is in order to not be a financial burden on the town, use all of our own resources to take care of all of our building expenses, so using library donations to replace light bulbs instead of using municipal funding and building that into our operations. But what we're trying to do right now is go into savings mode, because I really want to renovate the library. And I'm really hoping we can do it without spending public money. But if we keep having to spend all of our building donations on replacing light bulbs and fixing electrical outlets and things, general maintenance, then we're never going to get to the goal that we have. We've started a very preliminary subcommittee with the Building and Facilities Construction Committee and library trustees, and talked about the scope of what we want to happen to the building, just having an elevator, a parking lot, accessible entrance, and restroom. And like the very sort of, preliminary idea of what that can cost is that, we might be able to accomplish it for around $500,000. And, we've got almost up to $100,000 of funding that we could commit to that project. And so far, this fiscal year, have raised more. 2,657, that's not accurate. It's higher because I've got $1,000 of checks I need to turn over tomorrow. But, you know, there's also like our library incentive grant money, because we get around $10,000 to $11,000 per year of that if we stop spending that and saving that. Pursue big donations. I have some optimistic inroads with Resonate and with some other potential donors who might donate big. I'm optimistic that we can get there within the foreseeable future if we can kind of come back to relying on the town to take care of some of our, you know, general maintenance capital items. So like I've got 2 capital requests this year. It's like the first time we've ever done capital requests except for the security thing last year. But yeah, so that's basically what I've got. You know, I'm asking for, this is the budget that was approved by the trustees compared to the 5-year projection. It is bigger. It's, you know, about $11,000 bigger. But, you know, the need is indicated, I think, in the numbers. So it's just a question of whether we can afford it or not. Which you have to decide.
Yeah, yes. Well, we'll definitely do on it. Thank you for presentation.
Did y'all have
For
any other
expanding my
questions?
vocabulary tonight, consortially.
Consortially?
I've never heard that. I looked it up. It is a word.
You use the internet during the meeting?
Oh, that's right. We talked about that.
We did, Kevin talked about
Are
that.
you not allowed to do that?
Well, you're actually allowed, but you have to do it on something bigger than a phone, I think is the conclusion we reached.
It was,
Consortially.
How do you spell it?
TIALLY. I will use that now.
Okey doke.
In court?
I'll try to use it in the closing, yeah.
Did y'all want me to talk about the capital items, or does they speak for themselves, or?
No, we're good on the capital side. It speaks for itself.
Okey doke.
Thank you.
Thank you
As
very much
always,
for your
thank
time,
you.
Justin.
Thank you for the good job that you do.
Oh, thank you. I do my best.
you do.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, yes, you will.
Okay, so we're on to approved minutes.
We'll have the executive session minutes for you for your next meeting.
I'm not it.
No.
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for the February 4th, 2020 meeting.
I will second.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Your report, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, on February 6th, the Cannabis Control Commission issued a final license to Resonate for a vertically integrated medical marijuana treatment center and 4 provisional licenses. 1 for a grow, 1 for manufacturing, that would be the Gilboa Street location, and 2 retail establishments, 1 in Worcester, and the other in Northampton. So I would invite the board to review your host community agreements with Resonate. If we hold to the schedule, the town would be due $10,000 at the inception of cultivation. And then the remainder of the payments don't tie to operations at the grow. They tie to the period of time that a retail establishment operated by our partner in this agreement is in operation. So for adult use, there would be a payment due 6 months after that retail establishment opened. That would be $40,000. At the 12-month mark, you would get another $100,000 from the medical HCA and another $40,000 from the adult use HCA, so that's $140,000. And then every year thereafter, on the anniversary, the town would be due 230,000. Got one agreement at 150 and the other at 80. That's 230. I'm in the process of formulating a letter to Resonate to just make sure we're all on the same page, that our expectations are the same. The onus is on them to disclose to the town, because there was a notice requirement, when their retail establishment will open. The Worcester site had sort of a ribbon-cutting exercise back in December. He was just waiting for his license. So I'm optimistic that he'll be up and running. I'm sure he wants to be up and running very soon, so we're looking for...
40,000 contingent upon the opening of that, not the licensing or the physical opening?
When they start getting sales. So as soon as the cash register cha-chings once, it starts the clock.
Should be right there at the cash register, taking that percentage
Well,
out.
I think we all want to be there the day that first clone goes into the medium, because that's 10,000. And now, that's supposed to be under the HCA for an ambulance. But as DOR and Gene have advised, we really don't have that set up that way. You know, the accounting is, it's a general fund account. That doesn't mean you have to allocate it to general fund expenses. You can earmark it, but that's a town meeting activity. And
Let's get it first.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can't spend it till we have it.
The second thing I have for you is just to put an appeal out to the public. The Capital Committee is an important committee of the town. We had to cancel today, a little bit unusual to have so many people with the flu all at the same time. And one member was traveling out of town, but we're 2 members short, so when you have 2 people sick, one person out of town, one person couldn't make it for business reasons, we were down to 2 that were actually physically able to make it today. Possibly 3, but it wasn't a quorum, so it couldn't meet, and the work gets postponed, so we're going to try to reschedule that. In the grand scheme of things, it almost would make sense if, think of it this way, for the Capital Committee to actually be a subcommittee of finance, be an extra meeting for people, but it's a spending operation that's above and beyond. You know, it gets its own warrant article, and there's a whole process that's above and beyond the regular operating budget, that sort of typical activity. Excuse me. So I would just say, you know, we definitely need at least 2 more members, but I really think we need more like 4. Because if I followed the bylaws of the town really strictly, I would have to put people on notice they've missed too many meetings. I'm loath to do that because it's hard to get volunteers, but at some point we have to follow the rules and give people that notice.
So to transition capital to be a subcommittee of finance, would that require a town meeting action
You
as well?
would, because you have general bylaws that form both committees, so.
It'd be worth exploring, putting a warrant article together to do that.
I think it would be well worthwhile. Thirdly, Mr. Chairman, on March 12th, our friends at CMRPC are having a meeting to discuss a comprehensive regional plan.
Good.
Do we have a,
That's 10 minutes out of that?
we have someone on that board, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We have a
There's a
planning
lock on
expert on
that,
that
isn't
board.
That's what I thought, yeah.
My sincere hope is that the town's representative will go to the meeting. So I am going. I am going precisely to be a wet towel, because I really can't stand these comp plan efforts. Everybody gets all ginned up, everybody gets all excited. The document, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to write. There's all these elements and action and implementation and blah, 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 and it gets in a big binder, it gets put on the shelf, it collects dust. And the only way you get anybody to really do it seriously is if you tie grant assistance to it. I'm not entirely sure that Town of Douglas wants to give up its operational flexibility to a regional planning agency to be eligible for grant. I hate these things. In the state where I used to work, it was mandatory that every municipality file a comp plan with the statewide planning council. It's just a horrible exercise. It actually creates more divisiveness and counterproductive dialogue, in my experience, than it's worth. So, but I put it out there. March 12th, it's at the Blackstone River Valley Heritage Center in Worcester.
Is that different from the SEDS program?
It's different from their SEDS plan.
Yeah.
You might have all the same faces in the room,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
a
what you
different.
usually mean.
SEDS is important. You have to do that. So that's the economic development stuff for the Department of Commerce.
Modern.
Lastly, I want to reinforce what you said, Mr. Chairman. That listening session, I believe it's March 4th, is specifically about oak trees and educating the public on what's going on. And so much of the forest here in Douglas is oak trees. And, I do want to respond to one thing that people see if you go up and down South Street, because frankly, I find it offensive and unnecessary. A large oak tree was taken down, and the abutter, because it's a public tree and public right-of-way, the abutter put a sign out there with WTF or whatever. It's a 300-year-old oak tree. It was not. At best, it was 295 because a certified arborist reviewed the plans to take trees on that street before anything was cut. Certified arborist said this tree's been dead for 4 or 5 years. He made a number of notations, it's shedding bark, it's showing sponginess. We do not have the luxury to allow a tree that big to fall piece by piece onto the roadway, either during a storm or just a windy day. So the tree got taken, it's unfortunate, but we didn't kill it, it was already dead. And just put that out there, a letter was sent to the abutter from the certified arborist with the findings. We won't let that go unresponded to, so. We've been working.
Legislate common sense.
You cannot, no, you cannot. This budget that is circulating back and forth reflects certainly my support, my recommendation as the administrator. So I agreed with all the requests that have been put forward, and I put them into a draft document because they kind of passed the test. The test is, are we interrupting service delivery? Can we afford it? I think you've got a legitimate issue. My first thought on the circulation issue with the library is that it's outrageous that the school committee can't find $5,000 in a whatever many millions dollar budget to support their students reading during the school day. I think if they need some help, I'll volunteer to sharpen my pencil, help them find $5,000. Shouldn't come over to the town side. But other than that one item, all of these other spending requests were legitimate and justified. I will call your attention to one thing that I don't control, and that's the transfer station budget. I would call the board's attention and the public's attention to line 49905, which is the use of retained earnings. In fiscal 19, the actual use of retained earnings was 56,257. The budget for this year is 64,777. And the budget for next year, they're looking to use just a little bit short of $86,000, 85,965. That's an almost 40% increase in the reliance upon retained earnings to balance this budget. As we've said before, with the town, when the town used free cash or stabilization funds, it never did, but if it used free cash for operating budgets, that is a structural deficit. There's no nice way to say it, that's what it is. You're using one-time revenues that you can't count on or that will diminish over time because it's piggy bank savings. I don't know what's in that retained earning. I'll have to go to the audit to see what's in there. But the increasing reliance upon retained earnings is not financially a best practice. Over time, you will eventually have to come to grips with the fact that the facility costs more money to run than it takes in.
I did have this conversation with Bob and Kristen earlier today, and basically the same conversation, because you're taking money out of the savings to pay an operating cost. And I did ask them to look forward to see, because I don't know if you remember, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, they chose to reduce the amount per transfer station permit. They reduced the cost because their retained earnings was increasing. But now as the budget gets tighter and BP trucking is getting a larger expenses, less being turned back. And it works just the same way as the general fund does, where money gets turned back and retained earnings is kind of their free cash. They are aware of it. I think what I asked them to do today is to see if they had any plans for their and they're up around 200 and something, mid-250s. Any use? Are they going to pave? Are they going to build any buildings? Is there any planned use for that? And if there is, then they have to seriously look at the cost of the permit fees. Now, it's too late for this year, but I did give them as kind of a homework assignment, okay, what are you doing? You know, where do you see yourself next year? Unfortunately, this year is going to be a little bump because we had the September sales, and then we're having a full year of March sales. So it's almost like you have three
Right.
in this particular FY20. Next year, it will go down. So we may see a little bit of a hike in retained earnings as we close FY20, but it'll settle off in FY21. So I did make that a point with them. It has been increasing. You know, again, FY20 is going to close in a strange year because we have a full permit in March as well as the past September. So it's going to be a little odd for this closing, but they are aware of it. And they need to project forward. You know, what do they plan on doing?
Yeah, they're going to need to do some modeling and...
Are they going to need to do that? If not, then they plan to keep the permit fees lower. Maybe okay, but it's the same concern I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sustainable what they're doing.
No.
And if it gets down to where it's a net zero, then there's no more transfer station.
Yeah.
It's kind of that simple.
Transfer station's a little different because everything recycles within itself. They don't lose it. So if they don't use, if BP trucking comes in at 150, we budgeted 220, then that residual is going to close into, so it's not going to be lost, it stays within itself.
Right.
Versus the general fund where, you know, it can be reappropriated someplace else. You can't with the enterprise funds. But they do have to figure out what they plan to do over the next 3 or 4 years and when they plan to do that.
Now, they following the model that you'd asked them on 5-year budget?
No, this is a business-like entity, so they're going to have to do it slightly differently. They're 100% accurate. They've got a double whammy. They're no longer taking in money,
And that's
revenue
cost.
from recycling.
Yeah.
And these haulage contracts just keep getting more and more expensive. That's not going to change anytime in the near future. Haulage contracts are going up for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is workers' compensation and other cost pressures that are pushing up the cost of running trucking companies. Plus, you got to find a place to bring the stuff to, and those tipping fees and other charges are just going up as the space diminishes. So they are up against a couple of really difficult dynamics. Brings me to my last point. One thing they could do, or they should at least explore doing, and I know they are exploring it, is a responsible use, if it's possible, of the landfill surface for solar. So that would be another source of revenue that would not be tied to the industry at all, be a stable basis. Which brings me to my point. The planning board is considering asking town meeting to do a moratorium on solar development in the town. And there are any number of policy reasons. They're an elected board. I'm not going to get in their policy grill. I understand that it can be challenging when you have an environment where you can have solar as of right in a residential zone. And they want time to think that through and the implications of that. That's a very responsible thing to try to grasp. But for municipal uses, I don't feel that moratorium is warranted. And just as your day-to-day agent, I've kind of made my opinion clear that I really hope that they would carve out municipal properties. Because we can be working with solar developers, but we can't commit to anything, either at the town administrator's office or the board of selectmen. You've got all this public process would be required, so if the public had a point of view on the use of municipal property for solar, they'd have multiple places they can plug in. And the problem with the process now is that if it's planned on private property, they come into the planning board for site plan review, and that's it. And if the planning board's actually following the law, they can't say yes or no in site plan review, they can only establish conditions. But it's permitted as of right, then it has to occur. With the municipal stuff, we'd probably have to go to town meeting. There would be 30B procurement process, either to sell land or to do a long-term lease. We can't just willy-nilly show up at the planning board with a site plan review if you want to do a municipal solar field. So I would like them to at least consider taking the town's properties out of the discussion.
Because we're already heavily regulated in the process that, unlike...
Yeah, there's lots of due process and public transparency from point A to point B.
Have they offered any feedback as to their willingness to comply?
They're just in the beginning phases of the conversation, but I want to make you aware of it as a board that has control over large pieces of town property. I thought you would need to know timely. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. So, we have any old business? None? Any new business? Again, seeing is none. Mr. Bonin, about one of your...
Yep. I'll make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of a discussion on real property and collective bargaining, then to leave executive session for the purpose of adjournment.
I would second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote?
Mike Hughes, aye.
Vote aye.
Kevin Morris, aye.
Davis, aye.
Cortez, aye.